is the future impact of IoT in healthcare industry? Then finally followed by the Q&A. Okay, let me introduce you about which is the fastest growing industry or the sector, that is healthcare industry. This is because of two things. The first one is aging population. This is a phenomenon worldwide. And then the other one is chronic diseases. So these have actually fueled increase in medical personnel and ever-growing demand. So in this digital transformation age, how can Internet of Technology, a platform, leverage the healthcare to make it cheaper and efficient? So in other words, affordable, right? So what is Internet of Things? So Internet of Things is connecting physical objects or the devices, or in other words, it is also called as a things to the existing Internet, right? That's it. So you have a device or a sensor or a physical object which is actually hooked up to the Internet. So these devices are the things collect a meaningful data, right? Without or very minimal intervention from human, right? So there is a subset of IoT which nowadays they call it as Internet of Medical Things. In short, they call it as IoMT. The only difference here is the sensors are the medical related devices, or the sensors are used in the IoMT along with the software via Internet. So let's look into the details of Internet of Things. So here there are 4 blocks. These are actually called as a pillars, right? These are actually called as a pillars. The first one is a sensors. Okay, this is the starting point of any Internet IoT ecosystem. Then these sensors help you to collect the data. Once the data is collected, then it goes through the second pillar, that is connectivity. So your data, to make it meaningful, this data is actually pushed to the data center or to the cloud using whatever means we have, like a local area network, wide area network, Wi-Fi, and other things, right? Then once it goes into the data center or into the cloud, we need to analyze the data, right? So I'll focus more on this analytics later, at the later part of this talk. Then once the analytics is carried out, then the data or the results are available to the medical professional or the healthcare professional in the form of the graphs or any other the relevant formats. So now, when we say Internet of Things, so this actually covers many sectors. You start from wearables, vehicles, connected homes, connected cities, and other industries. Virtually, you can say every industry nowadays makes use of Internet of Things, including transport, oil and gas, and the healthcare. So today's talk focuses on the healthcare sector. How can we leverage on the IoT platform in the healthcare sector? Okay, what is the motivation to do this? Okay, there are 3 things here to use IoT in healthcare. The first one is aging society. The second one is diseases of affluence. And the third one is ever-growing medical staff shortage. So now, as we know, the aging society, which is very common in every country, and even the diseases of affluence as well as a medical shortage. So the idea here is, with the help of IoT, we can actually move our healthcare beyond the hospital to the community. How can we move our healthcare from hospital to the beyond the hospital to the community, and then from there healthcare to health? So I'll be covering these things in the next few slides. Now, when I talk about the ecosystem here, so we have the sensors or the devices which actually collects the data, and using the connectivity pillar, we push the data to the cloud, and then the data gets processed. It all actually depends upon the data, right? So in the analytics pillar, it is actually analyzed. Then finally, the results are actually available to the concerned person here. You may be a healthcare professional or medical professional, doctors, and so on, so that they can actually make a decision, right? Okay, so if you look at the simple architecture of the system here, on the left hand side, you see the sensors, the things or the devices, they generate tons of data in this case. Okay, virtually every sensor eventually is going to generate a data. This data is through the gateway. It is actually pushed to the cloud in this case. So I have a few things or the sensors. The data is being collected and pushed through the gateway. This is the gateway here. Then from this gateway, it actually go to the cloud of the data center. And inside this, we have this analytics. There are few layers in the analytics, including the AI. Your data gets analyzed in this. Then the results are actually pushed to the end users. So you can actually see here the end-to-end, the system start from thing or device until the concerned professional or the medical professional on the right hand side. Now, how can IoT help in healthcare, right? So we start with the very first one, right? The remote patient monitoring. This is although not very new, so we can monitor vital parameters using the remote. That is the first application, and it can be telehealth. So this is where, especially during pandemic, we can actually use the video or the phone call to keep track of the progress, to give a prescription to the patient using the telehealth. The next one, the growing sector is assisted living. So we want our elderly, the independence, when they stay, we want to monitor them with the assisted living. So there are many sensors being used at home. They can continuously monitor and alert if there are any abnormalities. We can actually monitor them using the assisted living. The next one is hospital asset management. Is like an inventory. Okay, so it makes, especially for the hospitals and the clinics, it makes life easier. So they can tag the things or the devices in real time. Actually, they can track these devices. They can also find, the usage of certain facilities. Okay, that is something like an inventory. The next one is about the drug management. So we have a medication reminders, self-medication reminders, and so on. By using this, we want the user to comply with a prescription. So this is another area in the healthcare sector. So already there are devices which are actually used for drug management. Later, I'll show you one of the case studies under this. Then the next one is hand hygienic. This is also another area. here we can actually, with a few sensors, we can actually see whether there is a compliance, whether in the hospital or in the clinic, we can see the compliance. We can keep track of this. The next one is a chronic disease management. It can be any chronic disease. So the IoT can actually play a major role in this chronic disease management, such as high blood pressure, the sugar, and so on. We can make use of the IoT platform. The very interesting one is a behavior modification. This is like a behavioral science, we can say. The user, we can actually view the facial recognition and their behaviors. Okay, is like a behavioral science. When the smart devices are connected, we can observe these changes remotely. Okay, this is a very important sector, such as, for example, in the Google as well as in the Facebook. So looking at our browsing pattern, they can actually push the relevant advertise to the users. So in a similar way, they can actually use AI, artificial intelligence here. Then they can actually monitor the behavioral changes. Okay, this actually leads to behavioral science. So I talk about this in the subsequent slides. The next one, once we know why the IoT is actually required when it has so many applications, what is required here? The first and foremost, we require IoT platforms, right? We don't need to build from the scratch here. There are many platforms available, right? So such as a very popular one in the top 10, Microsoft Azure IoT suite, the Google Cloud platform, IBM Watson, the Oracle platform, as well as the Cisco IoT platform. So these platforms have different tools, different software suites, which actually cater for different applications. They don't just cater for the healthcare industry. These tools and applications can be used for other sectors as well, like a building automation, transportation, oil and gas sectors, and so on, right? Okay, now let's look at what is a sensor. In a simplest form, sensor is nothing but a device, okay, which responds to input from the physical environment. Okay, so that means we can say it sends the input and provide you the output. So most of the time, your output is in the electrical form, or the format, or in the optical format. So for example, on the left-hand side, you can see physical quantities, a bacteria, the sound, a motion, or chemical reaction. All this can be sensed by a simple sensors. This sensor data, when it is converted to the electrical signal or the optical signal, can be pushed to the data center for further analysis. Okay, that's the first block of the IoT ecosystem in this case. So once we have a sensors, there are different kinds of sensors. Some are wearable sensors, such as heart rate, blood pressure, SpO2, step count. Actually, there are many sensors, including ECG, EEG, and so on. We come across these sensors, in the hospital, right? So once we have this, why sensors are actually used in hospital? Yes. So this is to measure the vital parameters such as temperature, the breathing rate, blood pressure, and so many other vital parameters that can actually help the practitioner or the doctor in making decision. And also these sensors are used in the CT scan as well as in the MRI scan to pick up the complex signals, right? So that the doctor can have a full view of the patient's body. So now if you look at this, sensors play a very important role in the hospital, right from your operation theater or diagnostic or a simple the monitoring of the vital parameters. The sensors actually play very important role. Now, if you look at the stages here, stages of the IoT, just now I give you an example here, the 4 pillars. I slightly elaborate more on this. You have a devices or the sensors. In fact, we can say these are smart sensors. So in the sense, when we say smart, they have some kind of intelligence built in, right? They acquire the data, and this data is actually sent to the next stage, that is the database or the cloud center or the database center. So that is the second pillar here. Once the data is acquired, of course, the data has to be processed. Okay, so data has to be processed or corrected in certain format, and then is actually stored in the data storage center here. So there are many forms of storing the data because the data generated here is very huge, right? Now, once we have the data, we cannot leave the data as it is. It doesn't make sense. We need to analyze the data. We look at the past data. We look at the present data, the real-time data. Then we go for the decision making, whether is the reactive action or is a proactive or is a preventive. So all this actually depends upon the last pillar, the data analysis part in this case. Okay. Now let's look at how the worldwide, the IoT healthcare market. This is in US dollar billions. If you look at the 2022, the current year is about roughly about 74 billion US dollar. This is the survey conducted by Statista in 2022. Okay, so you can see it's set to grow in the next couple of years. Okay, yes. Now, then people think that, wow, the IoT can actually capture the data and it is processed in the cloud. Then it helps in diagnosis and the prescription and so on. Yes. Not just that, when you have this artificial intelligence or a machine learning and deep learning, we can make this IoT, more powerful. In the sense, we can add power to it, right? So that's where we call it as IoT and AI. They are blended platform, right? So how can the AI, the artificial intelligence, complement with the IoT platform? So in short, the artificial intelligence, it simulates human behavior. We want to make the machine intelligent so that it can actually, like human being, it can solve complex problem, right? We want to make the machine as if it is a human being. So it can think on its own. It can solve complex problems. So that's where the artificial intelligence or AI plays a very important role, right? Okay, what is the purpose of AI in this case? Okay, this can be from early disease detection through a decision making or the better patient outcomes. The AI can be used. Now, in this case, the importance of the AI hinges on where do we use the AI? At what stage in the IoT we use the AI? That actually plays an important role, and it can effectively contribute in decision making. Okay, so some of these applications we can actually see here. In this case, The AI can be used for self-care and prevention, chronic care management, diagnosis, as well as the care delivery and clinic decision support. So these are some of the applications of artificial intelligence. Now, let me take one example of this AI here. If you look at this picture, we can input the symptoms such as, a chest pain, palpitation, cough, and other things to the machine, and other things such as biochemical analysis like urine and blood test result, and other features such as age, gender, a family history, smoking, and other things. When we input all this into this AI system, the outcome or the output of this is the result oriented, that is diagnosis. So it can help us to categorize whether the outcome is a positive or is a negative or uncertain or require further investigation. So AI can actually assist physicians in early diagnosis, and better clinical decisions. And nowadays, AI is being used in cancer classification, right? Especially in the scans, AI can be used where the physicians or the doctor can miss out certain things, but the AI can actually pick up those abnormalities, right? So the prediction of outcome of the disease, and not just that, the AI can actually learn on its own. So that means you keep feeding the data, the model become more accurate. Okay, so it actually needs a data. That's it, right? Okay, so now when you have this, unlike every industry, they got a different phases, right? If you talk about automation, they have a 1.0, 2.0, the evolution. Similarly, in the healthcare as well, we have this evolution. If you look at the 1.0, we mostly focus on the process, okay, and the doctor. Here we have a medical product, the hardware, the consumables, and so on, right? So the outcome is focused on evidence-based care here. So that is 1.0. Now from 1.0, we slowly shifted to 2.0, is more technology focused, right? It's not any more process focused, it's technology focused, where we have this wearable devices, big data, and the analytics. So now our focus is more on the real-time outcome-based care in the technology-focused area. The next one, the 3.0, is a blend of technology and human. That's where we use robotics for surgery, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and virtual reality. Now, we don't just focus on treatment, we just focus on reactive treatment, we rather focus on a preventive care or the prediction. Okay, so this is where we are right now, that is 3.0, under which we actually make use of all these the technology platforms, robotics, AI, AR, and the virtual reality. This is the evolution. You can see here, more or less, each of these 1.0, 2.0, you can say it may take about 10 to 12 years to evolve from one phase to another phase in this case. Okay, if you look at this here, healthcare beyond hospital to community. Okay, so under this, I'm going to discuss about few use cases, right? I start off with rehabilitation games for the PR, pulmonary rehab. Okay, if you look at this here, under this, we can see this is a traditional rehab. This is a traditional rehab. Okay, the two simple steps here, the inhale and exhale. Okay, now these are the traditional one. You know, they inhale for few seconds, exhale, and so on. These are some of the rehab exercises for improving the lung capacity. Okay, most of the time, if you look at this, people tend to give up this because they find them boring, monotonous, no incentive, not able to see progress. So they keep doing the same thing. They don't find it, oh, I cannot see any progress. Then why do I want to continue this? Then on top of that, there is no motivation, right? Now, if you look at this here, rehab games, how can we convert these rehab games here to make them more interactive using the IoT platform, right? So they can increase motivation. Users can track their progress. Then there is a more commitment, right? So having said that, it can be improvised through the game. The exercises are provided for them. Then they are able to monitor their breathing rate. Okay. So breathing games, based on the survey, the breathing games are the most fun and easy way to improve breathing, right? So later I share one of the case studies in the slide. I'll elaborate more on that. Now, when I talk about this IoT for respiratory rehab, again, we actually start off with a sensor here. Okay, the user use the sensor, breathe in, breathe out, inhale and exhale. This data is actually collected by the controller, which is something like a brain. You can connect many sensors to this controller. Then from here, using the Bluetooth, the data can actually go to the VR game, right? This can be a Google Cardboard in this case. So now, if you look at this, the user is actually playing the game using the VR goggle or the Google Cardboard. The data is continuously sent. He is interacting with the game while he is actually breathing in and breathing out. At the same time, the data you can actually see through Wi-Fi sent to the cloud in the background, right? The user, at the end of this exercise, the user can actually monitor his progress using the IoT platform. At a click of a button, using his phone, he can actually see how he is actually progressing this exercise regime. So he can actually view on his mobile phone. This is where you can see it is more interactive because he or she can actually play the game while doing the exercise, and then the data is being captured. At a click of a button, he can actually see his progress. Not just that, it can actually remind him when he is supposed to do the exercise. Okay, this is a simple block diagram to show how IoT can be used for a home-based respiratory rehabilitation, right? Now, there are other examples such as virtual reality platform for physical rehab, right? This is, you can use a Kinect or you can even use other sensors here. This is mostly meant for locomotive disabilities here. So especially for cerebral palsy and the autism. So in this case, if the muscles are weak, if they cannot raise both the arms or the spinal cord injuries and so on, they can actually use this VR platform to exercise, right? And not just that, the physicians, in this case, the therapist can actually set the the difficult level in this game. Oh, if the user can do this level 1, automatically he can go to the level 2, level 3. So these can be set by the therapist. So these kind of exercises can be done at home with a proper exercise video. Now, after the exercise, once again, the data is being captured and is stored in the cloud for further progress or for monitoring purpose. Okay, the next one is an example of a smart vest. If you look at this smart vest, user can actually wear this vest. This is meant for COPD patients to measure respiratory rate continuously. Now, in this case, they use a kind of a sensors. They are called as capacitive touch sensors. They are very tiny sensors. And this jacket actually has those sensors here. They embedded inside the jacket itself. Then they have a processing unit. So the data is continuously, the respiratory rate is actually captured. And then it is actually sent to the communication unit. And not just that, when it is sent to the communication unit here, you have DAD, which is actually called as decision analysis device. This can actually make a decision. In this case, it can alert or it can actually prompt the user. Okay. Then if you look at the graph shown here, they can continuously keep track of respiratory rate. In this case, okay, the smart vest can give even the oxygen saturation level in this case. Okay, so this is one of the examples of the smart vest. Of course, there are many other vests using different sensors. The next one, I want to talk about some of these use cases here. The first one is the hospital is trying to find out to prevent bed sores, right, among its patients, especially those who are immobile or bedridden. Now, how can we use IoT platform to prevent these bed sores in the hospital? Okay, if you look at this here, what you need, you just need to embed certain sensors here on the mattress. Okay, that is the starting point. Then you can actually, this sensor can actually collect the data, okay, of the humidity, the body temperature, and other things. These relevant parameters through the controller, the data can be actually sent to the cloud or the internet in this case. Okay, the data is stored and then analyzed using these web servers. Then, once the data is analyzed, the concerned doctor or healthcare professional get to see the result. So, whether is there chances of, the ulcers at certain spot, they can even actually give something like a heat map. Oh, these are the spots this patient may get ulcers, so that they can actually take a preventive action in this case. This is one of the examples of the IoT. The second one is hand hygiene. Just now I mentioned one of the examples, hand hygiene. How can we use IoT for this purpose? Once again, if you look at this, everything actually starts with the sensors here. The various sensors, flow sensors, motion sensors are deployed. Then the data, how long they sanitize their hands, the usage, all this information is actually captured and through Wi-Fi is actually sent to the server. Then they can see the compliance percentage among the staff and the users. This is another simple example of IoT applications. The next one, asthma. Okay, it involves attacks, sometimes suddenly, without any warning. So in this case, we can make use of IoT. The inhaler is attached with the sensors. So as and when there is an attack, it actually collects the surrounding data, the pollution level, the gas level, the temperature, humidity, all these parameters are automatically captured because these sensors are mounted on the inhaler. Okay, the surrounding values. And using the mobile phone, this data is actually transmitted to the server. Now, once it goes into the server, they can actually see where the pattern, under which conditions this user got attacked, right? Then they can actually personalize based on this pattern, they can personalize the treatment. So this is very helpful for asthmatic patients. Okay. So the next one I want to share here is deep breathing exercise for COPD patients. This is to make it more interactive. Again, you can have a game in the handphone. Then you have a device with a sensor, breathe in and breathe out. Once again, the data can be actually stored in the server for further analysis. So in a way, the user is actually involved in playing the game. At the same time, he is actually exercising in this case, right? Okay, the next one I want to show here the use case, the home-based sleep apnea system for the COPD patients. So here we have a smart mattress with sensors, the oximeter and the stopwatch. These continuously send the data to the controller, right? The data from here is actually sent to the web application or the server, and they can actually keep track of all these parameters, which can actually help in diagnosing the sleep patterns or sleep apnea. So this is a home-based system. So I'd like to share a short video on this before I proceed to other examples. Let me share a short video here. Maybe along the way I actually explain. So in this case, you can actually see we have an oximeter, smartwatch, as well as the Google Cardboard in this case, and the bed with a simple sensors. Okay, mounted. The bed is actually mounted with the sensors. Now this is a console. So during this analysis, we can actually see the user use the VR goggle, in this case, or the headset. Okay, he can actually, on top of this, the oximeter and the smartwatch to capture the vital parameters. Okay. So, if you look at this, all these parameters are actually sent to the portable console here. The one you can actually see. This is a smart ring, oximeter smart ring. Then we can see the data is being captured. In the background, this data is continuously updated in the server for further analysis, like a sleep pattern. Right? So this is then at the end of this sleep cycle, they get to view the sleep pattern. Okay, so this is one of the examples here. Okay, let me move on to this now. This is one of the examples. We can actually see how IoT can actually play an important role. Now, not just that, IoT can also be used in remote health monitoring, as I mentioned, especially during this the COVID period. We have a body area network, so that means where the person is attached with the different sensors. All these parameters of the data are being sent through the gateway, and the medical personnel can actually review these parameters and advise the prescription in this case. So this is one of the examples. The next one is tele-rehabilitation. Although tele-rehabilitation is not very new, is being practiced for many years. So here we have a Kinect as well as other sensors. A person can actually do this, the physiotherapy at home in this case, right? So the therapist is able to view the exercise, the data, and the progress and other things using this system. The next one,
Mr. Kamba?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we can also show your PowerPoint slides.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Mr. Billy can see now?
Yes, all good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is for the tele-rehabilitation. Just now I mentioned can use a Kinect and other sensors so that users can exercise at home. Another example is this wearable sensor here, which actually helps to monitor the body glucose level as well as whether a person need to be dehydrated or not. Okay. The next example, care and pain medication management system. Just now I mentioned how IoT can be used in this, the medication management. So this can actually dispense the medication on demand. This is another example. Okay. The next one is the 3D wound imaging technology. So we want to keep track of the wound healing. In this case, we can actually use 3D imaging technology to measure the wound size. Okay. Then the progression over the time, and this data, the AI can actually compare from day to day, the progression, and it can actually help in diagnosing the disease and so on, right? Okay, the next one, the telemedicine, the remote as well as the robotics. Of course, the idea here is this IoT technology or AI and the machine learning can actually help a medical professional in decision making, as well as they tend to cut down the time for the diagnosis in this case. So they help in the diagnosis. These are some of the examples. Okay, now what are the benefits of IoT in healthcare? First one is a lower cost for the patients, improved treatment outcomes, right? Especially for the scans and those things. For the diagnosis, the AI can play a very important role. Then a quick diagnosis. With this, certain things, especially in the radiology and other things, the AI can actually do those jobs, right? With the inputs from the physician in this case. Then the proactive treatment. So rather than reactive, is more on tend to be a proactive or preventive treatment. This is where we say beyond healthcare to health. So the vital parameters and other things are measured with the help of our physicians, and then we make the patient actually keep track of these parameters So we make it self-responsible. That is where is a proactive treatment in this case. Is no more reactive anymore. Right? So the next one is drug and equipment management is also one of the areas where we can actually use IoT application. And the last one is error prevention. Right? So especially in the diagnosis and other things, this can actually play a very important role. Having said that, not just the benefits, IoT also got certain risks and challenges. The first one, integration. There are so many players in the market. They manufacture sensors, devices, and some companies develop the IoT platform. There is a lack of integration. So there is no standard. That is one of the hindrance for the development. The second one is the security and the privacy. As we all know, the medical data is very sensitive. So the encryption level has not reached yet. Right? So any hacker or any spoof can actually sniff the data in this context. At this point of time, right, is more prone to security lapses. The next one is data overload. Wow, the data is tons of data. Right? Now, this data, if we don't mine it, such as using the big data, it becomes very difficult to manage this data. That's where we use big data in this case. The next one is a flexibility. So now, whenever certain companies develop certain platform, they need to see whether the future, the technology can actually support this or not. Whether there's a flexibility in adopting the future trends. So the device should not be obsolete, in 1 or 2 years when the new platform is available. That is another hindrance in this case. Then on top of that, lack of support, especially in the areas of AI, machine learning, and so on. Because the AI, everything actually depends upon our data. Right? So we want to use a machine learning. You need to feed the data so that the machine can accurately predict. So its prediction percentage can actually go up. So we still need a lack of support in this area. Okay, now the future scope of IoT, 57% increase workforce productivity, a sales cost, create new business models. Like that's where, the technology, the platform developer, the hospital, medical personnel, and the support staff play an important role here. So this is a new business model. The next one, especially for the research and innovation purpose, it also plays collaboration with the colleagues and patients. Right? So this is the future scope of the IoT. Okay. Yes. So now is the time for Q&A. So are there any questions? I see a few questions here. Okay. There are a few questions. Maybe I like to answer this question. What are some of the cloud server that we can use to collect and save result in? Okay, so for this, there are two types here. There are some open software platforms such as ThinkSpeak, right? These open source platform can be used, for testing purpose, right? You want to test initially your system, you can use. So, but there are other platforms which are AWS, Microsoft Azure, and the Cisco platform, which can be used as a cloud services for the IoT platform. right? So most of them actually based on the usage, right? Pay as you use, that kind of model they work, like depending upon how many sensors you connect, what kind of analysis you need. So the pricing is actually based on that. Okay. The next question, for data transfer to the cloud server, what is the expected delay or time taken for them to be stored and to be seen? Okay, now in this case, this is an interesting question. When we talk about a cloud server, of course, it has to hit the traffic bottleneck, our internet traffic. Sometimes it may be slow depending upon the traffic. Sometimes it may be faster. In this case, let's say when we want to do a predictive analysis, the data, as long as you have stored the data, for a few days, then at the end you can actually come out with the result. Okay, but in certain cases, right, where you want the immediate answer, you don't want to send the data to the cloud. It takes few hours to come out with a diagnosis result. We can actually use a fog computing, or is called as a edge computing. So this edge computing resides at the hospital, which can immediately, based on the intelligence built in, it can actually give you the response faster rather than going to the cloud and getting back the result. So there are few models. One is a cloud one, where you don't need an immediate response, right? The other one is a edge computing and the fog computing. They can give you the result in a real time, because your sensor data will not go to the internet. Instead, it will go to these points, the edge computing. This is within your premises. So the delay is very minimal in this case. Okay. The next one, can you recommend any API that is easy to use, building simple application without any coding needed, perhaps something similar to Microsoft Azure, drag and drop? Okay, here I can actually suggest there are a few things you can use. ThinkSpeak is one of the platform. Okay, the other platform I also suggest here is ThinkWorks, ThinkWorks is another platform which can also be used. Like you have a sensor, you just drag and drop. Okay, then you hook up the sensor. They are actually wired to this respective blocks. Is another. There are few the free players, the platforms we can actually make use of in this case. Okay. Yes. The next question, does HSA certified IoT devices to be cybersecurity safe for use by patients? Okay, at this point of time, there is no, okay, some of the cybersecurity, of course, they need to patch up their systems and so on. At this point of time, there is no the HSA certificate for the devices as of now. Maybe in future, hopefully, they will have these certificates implemented for the IoT devices. Now they just look at, your platform is more, can with a proper update and the encryption level, whether the system is secure or not. So it's not at the device level, it's more at the platform level. So the device, as long as you have a FDA and the certified, you can actually use the device for the IoT purpose. Okay, so this is the cybersecurity is more on your platform. Through your platform, they enter into your device. All right. So when they enter to the platform, if the hackers can be blocked at that level, they don't reach up to the device level, or they don't penetrate into the intranet or your private area network. PAN, they call it as private area network, is more secure in the sense. because your gateway can actually block a lot of things. Any other questions? I hope this has given you a general idea, okay, about how IoT can be used in healthcare and how can we shift the beyond the hospital to the community and beyond healthcare to the health, in this case using the technology. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. Now, Billy will take over for short survey.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mr. Kumba, for your insightful sharing today. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone. We have come to the end of today's session. Thank you all for joining us. But before you leave, we will appreciate if you could provide us with your feedback via the poll link shown on your screen right now. Yes, so we hope you have had a fruitful learning experience today, and also we look forward to seeing you at our future SIMTalks sessions. Yes. So if you have no more questions, if you have any questions, you can also email us and we will forward the questions to Mr. Kumba. Yeah. Okay, if not, thank you all. This is the end of today's sessions. Thank you, Mr. Kumba.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we will be ending the poll session. Okay, if not, we will be closing the webinar session in a minute time. Thank you.